Always love this. Let me make sure. All right, let me just adjust that. So that my head ain't cut off. Okay. So hi, we're back for another Saturday soul session. I hope you are having the most fantastic Saturday there ever was. Who's up in here with me today? Teresa, you always show up, girl. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming through. And I hope that means that the stuff that we're talking about is helpful for you. So I'd like to think that's why you keep showing up. So thank you so much, Teresa. Good morning. Yeah, I'm doing it earlier today, right? So it's fall, and so like the sun is setting a little bit earlier, so I try to catch a bit of natural light. I don't know that it really matters, but that's just what I'm doing. So that's why I moved it up earlier. You my girl, Teresa. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so let's get into it, shall we? Today we're talking about wellness and Black women travelers. So, where do we start? At the beginning, of course. I believe that a lot of our existence from the moment we were born was set to productivity. And you know what that's rooted in. And if you don't, it's rooted in all these systems of oppression that have been built against us. But often it's not until much later in life that you're able to take a breath to realize that you've been on this hamster wheel. That's why we feel like we've been on a hamster wheel, because we have in a lot of different ways. And so if there's always this mindset of productivity, you always have a purpose. You always have a focus, right? And that means that you're not able to really relax. Even as kids, it's just like, oh, can I have some candy? Money don't grow on trees. Do you know how many? Like we were already fully aware of these adult responsibilities even before we were adults. Like, how many kids actually get to be kids? How do you have the cover of childhood to just be ignorant and peaceful and play and enjoy life? I don't know that many of us had that, particularly since our parents a lot of times were strapped. And so that may have limited in some ways our ability to explore the world and what we knew existed outside of just like our home environments. So it goes from childhood into adolescence, into your high school years, especially. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up. It goes into your high school years. So in high school, particularly, you're concerned about the things that you're doing that's going to get you into college. And then, of course, in college, you're worried about getting the good grades, getting the degree so that you can get the job. And then the goalpost always moves. It used to be a college degree was sufficient, graduating from university was sufficient. And like, then you had to get a master's. Like, you were overqualified for some jobs and underqualified for other jobs. So it's just like going to school was a conversation that a lot of us had to have with ourselves to get that master's, to get even higher, like beyond just a bachelor's, right? And maybe back in the day, it used to be an associate's was good enough. Who knows? Again, the goalpost, goalpost moves. So if you in college, that's typically like, oh, you're supposed to have fun and like do this and do that. And maybe you did some of that, but there was always something driving you. There was this mindset, I feel, and I'm going to speak super broadly, right? Super broadly. There was this mindset that I can't fail. I don't have room to fail. I have to succeed because my future is riding on this. in a way that I don't know that other cultures had to have that type of hard focus, right? So, when do you get to relax? When do you get to enjoy life? Like, never. And other cultures, like, really don't do that. Other cultures have space and time. Like, yes, be serious about what you got going on, but there's just a bit more space. There is pressure, but there's also a bit more space to relax a little bit, to feel yourself. So it's just this never ending cycle, this never ending, because even in the job, you can't relax, right? Because then you trying to get the promotion. There's always the pressure in the job to not be comfortable where you are, to keep striving for more. And even if you are comfortable where you are, then there's the threat. There's always the office politics. There's a threat. Somebody thinks that you're going to come from for their job because you're good at your job or something like that. And we all know, most of us, if you've had any type of like corporate experience, know what it's like to be in an office. And in that environment, you're cutting pieces of yourself off in order to fit in there too. It's the way you dress, it's the code switching, it's your hair, it's being able to not being able to have conversations openly with coworkers because there's this part of you that's protecting who you really are. So you're not even able to like really be yourself at work either. So it is absolutely interesting how fast this all happens. Like if you look back, it's really like the blink of an eye how fast you've been through all of these stages and maybe have never really had time with yourself to know what you enjoy. I like that some people get to they say it's like a gap year or something, and it's only a year. A lot can happen in a year, but they get to just traipse around and like do whatever they want and go work on a farm or I don't know, just do something else before they enter their formal education. You get an idea. Imagine being 18. Imagine being 18 and trying to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life when you haven't really had much time to explore what it was you enjoyed in the first place. So if you do go straight into college, even if you don't go straight into college, it's like have you been able to be with yourself enough to know what it is that you enjoy and what you would like to know more about in depth? That's what college is about, right? University, being able to study something in depth and all of its nuance, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of courses and a lot of different angles that those things come at, and you have different levels of depth that you're able to dive into these different subjects. And so it's just amazing at how young of an age we're expected to do that with little knowledge of ourselves. And a lot of times too, it's the first time that you're living away from home. Some people do. I think in American culture, it's more common to leave home and then you like live in the dorms or you get roommates or like whatever that is. And it's a lot at once and it's a totally different environment. And now you're totally responsible for yourself. Where, I mean, some of us have had that already, right? Being completely responsible for ourselves. Hey, Christina. Hey, girl. Good morning. Excited to hear your views. Yes. Hey, Angela. Hey, girl. Thank y'all for coming through. So it's a lot. It's a lot that happens like 18, 20. If you graduate at 21, like it's just, it's such a short amount of time. And you haven't really had time to unpack nothing, right? Unpack nothing from your childhood, unpack anything from your adolescence, teenage years when you're being who you're being and filling your oats and trying to figure everything out. And then you go into adulthood and then don't strap on the other stuff that could happen, babies. And of course, there's the relationships. There's always the relationships. And if you had your little sweetheart or whatever, maybe you was wrapped up in that for a while too. And then some people are very family identified. And so maybe you were under the cover of family. And there may not even be an awareness that I need to have time to understand who I am and what I'm about. There may not even be this, I should delve into the parts of me and understand what those parts really mean, and understand if those parts are serving me, and understand how I can be more whole, how I can embrace myself entirely. So, with the productivity, somewhere along the way, we found travel, right? Somewhere along the way, we were like, wow, this is amazing. I get to be myself. I'm in a new place. And I don't even think we really understand why we love travel so much, particularly as Black women. I think that we're able to put down a lot of the things that we've been carrying for those 20 something years, 30 something years. Sometimes we are older when we get our passports. Traveling in the US absolutely matters. I encourage domestic travel, but it's something about being completely out of the pond you were raised in that flips things around and makes you see something different. It's something about the energy on the soil. It's something about, the people moving around. That's just really different. And so it helps you to have a different perspective. So maybe people see you differently, but also you might see yourself differently when you're traveling. But I don't think that people think it's that deep. Generally speaking, I don't think that they're just like, let me get on a trip. I feel good. Like this feels good to me to travel. But you don't really think about why it feels good. And I think it's for some of those reasons. People see you differently and you're able to see yourself differently. Things that can be, it's possible, of course, but things that can be very difficult to do when you are in your home environment. So, yeah, travel is that girl for a lot of reasons. But sometimes there's also like the pressure, right? When you're traveling to do, to go, to see, to eat, of course, to eat. But I mean, you got to eat. But, to go take the photos. And maybe there's also a busyness there to where you're not doing this deeper, more introspective work that can help you to feel more fulfilled so that you don't have to live a life that you vacation from, because that is a thing, right? Let me get out of here. This is too much. Let me go on a vacation. And then you're in a vacation cycle. There's nothing wrong with vacation, of course, in and of itself. There's nothing wrong with any of this in and of itself. It is all about what is best for you and making more conscious choices about the decisions that you're making and the situations that you're enabling or not enabling, right? So we're going to talk about the insecurities a little bit later on. So travel came through, and maybe lately, particularly because the conversation has been louder, maybe you've wanted to center travel in your life where you're like, this is not for me. I'm ready to get up out of here. But you had to get to a place in your mind where you even allowed yourself to think that thought. And there might have been a lot of things you had to combat. What about my family? I have aging parents. What about, my kids? What about dating? If I leave, will I find somebody? Like a lot of these things may have been legitimate concerns when it came to you embracing something that could help. It's not the solution in and of itself. And I hate to tell you that. You can go, but you're going to take the exact same person that you are to somewhere else that's just operating in a different system that may just give you more privileges than the ones that you enjoy right now. Right? Right. So it's not the answer in and of itself. That's why we're having this conversation, right? Because this is going to be the key to you being able to enjoy who you are practically no matter where you are. Like pretty much no matter where you are. Not necessarily, but because like location matters. Like it does. Um so yeah, the cycle of vacationing, the cycle of taking breaks from your life versus building a life that you don't need such a break from, a life that you actually enjoy. And we talked a little bit about some things we can be distracted by, which are the family and the friends, which are also, I guess, like extending, like if you bought a house, you have a mortgage, things like that, the things that tie you down, right, to a specific location. And also maybe some of the bad habits you picked up to cope, or maybe some good habits, but you might be hiding behind those coping mechanisms as well. Whether that's drinking or whether that's hanging out with the friends, or sometimes people use religion to cope and hide behind that and don't empower themselves to be fully embodied. And what that looks like is, yes, a lot of things are great resources when it comes to the family, when it comes to enjoying good food and drink, therapy, when it comes to going to church or whatever that looks like for you, going to the mosque. There's also some things that you do to maintain yourself before you even get to those people and places. Because even if you go to those people and places, you still at some point have to be with yourself in some way, unless you are in the cycle of distracting yourself. Insecurities, right? So some people have begun to understand that you need time to yourself, like legitimate time to yourself. And some people could be like, why do I need time to myself? Like everybody's around me and it's fine. And like that kind of may be true because you can't be around a whole bunch of people and still feel alone. But I think that is very different from actually being alone and actually sitting with these things. And it's maybe because you don't understand how to sit with them. Like we historically have not had conversations around how to make these changes in our beliefs, in our actions, our behaviors. And so it can be daunting because it's just like, I don't even know how to fix it, but like it might not even be something you need to fix. It may just be your idea about the thing that you need to change so that you can invite more grace into your life, so you can invite more peace into your life and enjoy just the very act of breathing without being productive, without playing a role, without distracting yourself from who it is you really are. And you can just be with yourself and be okay and even celebrate who it is that you are, like the ultimate self love. So we talk about, who am I? What do I want? And these can seem like really big questions that don't necessarily have like specific concrete answers per se, but like you have an idea and you have a working idea. Because if you've known yourself, you've known that you've changed through the times. Your priorities have certainly changed. Your ideas about things may have changed. The people that you keep around you have changed. But who have you been through space and time? What have you wanted? And maybe you can let go of some of the stuff you wanted and accept what it is that you want now. So practicing that awareness to be able to sit with yourself in that kind of way. Teresa said, when you jump into the rat race or corporate America and you're code switching to fit in, when do you have the time to realize and be your true self all day, every day? Thank you, Teresa. Teresa gets it. That's what it is. It is fitting into that, is making yourself bland. It's taking away the seasonings, right? So that you are approachable, so that you are acceptable, so that you are promotable, all that stuff. My ex once told me, I love who you are when we travel. I was like, who am I? I didn't realize I was different. He said I was freer. Never realized it before. Sometimes it does take somebody mentioning something in order for us to catch ourselves in the act, to catch ourselves breathing, to catch real. But we want to get to the point where we see it for ourselves too. Do we see ourselves? And that could be a hard thing. There's this question that I like to ask in the Black Women Travel podcast that I do every single week. A new episode is dropping tomorrow, but you ain't got to wait for that because there's 110 more you can listen to. And I hope you find yourself in some of those stories. But there's a question I like to ask about, how do you like to celebrate? And I think that celebrating ourselves is absolutely about seeing ourselves. It's about saying, You came through, didn't you? Okay. Didn't you make it another day? Didn't you find a way to do something you love to do? Didn't you find a way to take a nap? Didn't you find a way to have a difficult conversation with someone you love about something that was really important to you? Didn't you? Da, 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 da? We often don't. And more than likely because we haven't been celebrated. Okay? We haven't been celebrated. And so we have a heart, we don't have the model for it. So what we're trying to do is create that model where we are seeing ourselves in our entirety. And that includes the stuff that we don't like and examining why we don't like it. Girl, why, can you imagine? I came out like this. I came out whole. I came out full of all this personality and all of this, all these characteristics. And I came out with this skin and this hair and this height and this whatever. I came with this. And for me to have the audacity to find something wrong with any piece of it, uh, that don't even sound right to me. Do that sound right to you? Drop it in the comments. I want you to tell me in the comments, I am making space to see myself more. I am making space to see myself more. I think that that is a radical practice, to see yourself and to say, wow, that was really toxic of me. That was really wonderful of me to support myself in that way. That was me sabotaging myself, and I caught myself in the act and I made a different decision. Or I recognize what that feels like now. So the next time it happens, I have something to model so that I can make a different decision in the future. Amazing. How amazing would that be to see yourself and practice responding in a different way, to make more room for yourself, to make room for yourself that probably nobody else in this entire world has. Even if you have a therapist, I don't think that they're able, because that's after the fact, right? A therapist is after stuff has happened and you're trying to reconcile and figure it out. Even a coach, a therapist may help you to deal with your past. A coach may help you to deal with building your future, right? A coach is like living in the vision of what you're building in the future. And so they may not even retroactively see everything that you've come through. But imagine you having been embodied the entire time, living in your skin, seeing yourself, all the things you've come through and the places you want to go, and sitting in the present right now today and saying, I see you, girl. I have compassion for you. I I admire you. I am ecstatic about who you are showing up to be. And if that doesn't sound true for you, switching that around, let's model it, right? I understand what you have come through, and I understand some of the choices that you think you had to make. And I would like to make some different choices with you so that we can walk ourselves down a different path. And it sounds super generic, so we should get specific. I love getting specific. What y'all talking about? Hey V, just joined. No, you're not too late. I'm making space to see myself more. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey Tish, what's good, boo? That's the difference. A therapist helps you to see things from your past, and a coach helps you with your future. That may be oversimplifying. Everything I say, is whatever. It may help, it may not. It may be true, it may not. But let's redirect the conversation. Let's interrupt our patterns. So specifically, let's get personal. Let's talk about me. Feel free, if you are open to sharing, feel free to share a limiting belief about yourself. Feel free to share something you've come through and that you're comfortable with sharing. So that means you've done the work around it. That means that the wound is like pretty much healed. And now it's just a scar, and you could look back and say, I came through that. So for me specifically, some of the conversations I've had to redirect about myself, because this is something I didn't mention, and it's that A lot of times living in our home countries, what can happen is it's like a fun house mirror or a carnival mirror, circus mirror. They have the rooms with the mirrors and you go in and it's a reflection of you, but is it accurate? And so if you see that, if you are not used to seeing yourself, you may think that that's accurate. Or that may stick out in your mind as that's how other people see me, or whatever it is. It can be mind boggling to come through a lot of what we've come through. And if we start to see ourselves how we think, sometimes we know, sometimes we don't, but how we think other people see us, that can distort everything we got going on because we haven't started from the source. We haven't started from the truth. We started from a reflection, and an inaccurate reflection at that, right? They're not seeing us clearly. They couldn't. They don't know nothing about us. So taking that back, rewinding that, and saying, because, and this is part of my experience, people saw me as aggressive. People saw me as intimidating. I've only heard some people say it directly out of their mouths, out their faces, to my face. How dare they? But yeah, I've been told that. And so I wore that for a long time. I was like, oh, people think I'm this, people think I'm that. Woo, 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 woo. And I don't know that it necessarily made me shrink. I mean, it must have in some ways, because that's how it works, right? It makes us alter who we are. But it certainly, I don't know. I guess it did dampen me in some ways. I feel like in a lot of ways I can't help but be who I am. So maybe it was more protecting my energy and my space and not being around certain people. I'm trying to remember what that looked like. And this is good because this is so far removed. Like, how could you say that about me? Yeah, I guess in some ways I still showed up as who I was because I only could. Like, that's what I knew to do. I didn't know how to be nobody else. But in other ways, it must have impacted who I was around, or if I was feeling a certain kind of way, maybe not. You can't give your stuff to everybody, right? We're living this life, and sometimes you just want to talk about what's happening, not with a professional, just with like regular people, because that's life. Like, those are the types of conversations you have with friends and family, right? Chosen family, all of that. So, but it would impact me being able to do that because of how these people didn't see me clearly. They didn't understand. When it came time for me to leave, when I packed up my bags and I deuced it out, then can I say that? Is that something nasty? Sorry. Sorry if that is. There were a couple people who just like did not get it. I'm sure more than a couple, but it's only a couple that told me to my face and they didn't get it. And it's just like, well, I can't even talk to you about this because like you don't see me. You don't see how hard it is for me to stay in Atlanta. You don't see how hard it is for me to not be able to be myself fully. Like, I can't just live for the weekends and I can't just live for whatever time I'm able to spend with you when I am able to more be myself. Like, because realistically speaking, like 40 hours a week, that's 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, week in, week out. You only get a couple days, a little snatches of time in the evening. If you want to be a zombie, then you staying out real late, and maybe that's not so healthy. So a lot of our time is consumed with that, and if you can't be yourself at work, which that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story for me, but you don't understand. You don't see me. And it's later, and it's just been maybe, so it's going to be 6 years, January, that I'm out here in these streets. And maybe only 2020 have those two particular individuals come back and say, oh, like, oh, I get it. So the importance of seeing yourself, the importance of grounding down into who you are and accepting. Maybe I am loud. I got the loudest laugh I've ever heard in my entire life. When I laugh, heads turn. And it's always been like that. I was raised in a barn. I wasn't really, but um, I'm gonna cut jokes. And if you are threatened because now you're no longer the funny person, I don't know what to tell you. You should get funnier. I should, what else does it look like? It just looks like taking up space. It's when your stomach kind of flip flops. It's as though you're watching yourself come up against this thing that you know is a thing for you, it's a trigger for you, and you saying, I see that you're there and I'm here anyway. I see that you're there and I'm gonna do this anyway. Whenever uh people doing stuff for me is like really awkward, or compliments. Okay, that's something we can all relate to. Compliments. Somebody's like, oh, you're doing such a good job, and you like, girl, I'm trying, like, well, it could be better. That's what we typically do. You give a black woman a compliment and it's not about her hair or her outfit or her shoes. She really don't know what to do with it a lot of times, and it's uncomfortable for a lot of black women to receive compliments. Instead of you stepping into it and saying, yes, thank you. That's why everybody's so mad at Sha'Carri right now. Like, oh, she a bum, she a loser, she lost that race or whatever. You just mad because she stood up and beat her chest and knew she was good at something. And losing one race doesn't mean that she's a bad runner. She just had a bad race. And she knows that. And she young and she lost her mama and she got all types of stuff going on. We're not gonna get into that too much, but it is confronting that. It is being in the practice of it, being in the moment of it. And you only get there by having your scripts and modeling it for yourself before you get to that point, so that when you get there, you're prepared. When you get to this place where you have to make a choice and you have to show who you are, and you either show up for yourself or you don't, then the likelihood of you showing up for yourself is higher because you've practiced showing up for yourself. Okay, so if this kind of, like, I know this is my trigger. If somebody calls me aggressive, if somebody calls me this or that, then I know who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am, and I'm going to take up for myself, because you're not allowed to tell me about who I am. Just because you feel intimidated doesn't mean I'm intimidating. So that's like a script, right? Because you feel intimidated, that doesn't mean I'm intimidating. That just means you're intimidated, right? Everybody over here is enjoying me or whatever it looks like. But that's a script, right? That is something that you come up with to say when you're faced with that moment, when someone experiences you in a certain kind of way, and you may start to internalize that. And that is the ultimate colonization, right? Is when you start to behave a certain way because the status quo wants you to. So you start to make yourself fall in line, and nobody even has to police you anymore. So, like, getting that all about, take the trash out, honey. It's time. What y'all talking about? It's the negative self-talk. Yes, ma'am, V. So many people congratulate me on my travel journey. They say I'm inspiring them, but that negative inner voice says, child, please, girl, you're not special. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And you can sit in that. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that one? You took the steps. You took the actions. You made the decision inside yourself first. You looked around and said, nope. And then you said, how? And then you said, all right, let's do it. And you took action. That is very special. You said yes to something that you wanted to do. That's special in and of itself. You gave yourself permission to live. That's super special. And just because other people can do it, it doesn't make what you're doing any less special. That's something that in a recent interview on the Black Women Travel podcast, that's something that came up. Anybody can do this. Maybe anybody can, but everybody won't and hasn't. And it's not even important to some people. You know how everybody has their thing. Some people are into the pets. Some people are into the marine life. Some people are into black rights. Some people are into baby rights. Some people are into whatever. Everybody has something that they're very, like, it's a pain point for them. It's very special to them, that a cause. every all these causes exist, and they probably have existed, but not everybody wants to take up that mantle, right? Not everybody wants to take charge for that thing. So yeah, you are special. Period. Point blank. You are special. It is special. And it's okay for it to be special. The negative self-talk is the main thing I'm working on, and it's a real struggle. Teresa, agree, honey. Being aware that it is negative and not true is the first step, though. You got it, Teresa. You got it. You say, well, Wanda, are you aggressive? Are you intimidating? And it's just like, well, I know sometimes I come across like this, or maybe it's the choice of the words, or maybe it's just my energy. And then it'd be like, well, girl, it's just you. And sometimes we make things our problem that aren't our problem. Maybe this is a woman thing as well, taking responsibility for stuff that ain't got nothing to do with us, right? Some of us, right? We take responsibility for that stuff when it's just like, oh, so that's how you interpreted what's going on. Well, what does that say about you? You know, turning it back around, being a reflection, being a mirror for someone else versus letting somebody vomit on you and project on you, whatever it is that they have to project, which is a lot of what we've dealt with. To put it, that's a horrible analogy, but it may be true for somebody to sneeze COVID in your face and now you infected because this person, oh, that's terrible. But this person has, and it is an infection, this person has gotten past your barriers, gotten past your defenses to make you look at yourself differently. That could have happened when you was 3. We was going to school at the age of 6, 7, having all types of things happen and no type of way to process or talk about it at home. A lot of our parents was, feeding us and putting a roof over. They weren't doing the emotional intelligence stuff. Well, what happened at school today? Somebody called me the N word. Oh, well, what do you think about that? And like, well, do you know who you like? I don't think we was having those types of conversations at home. So we had a lot of stuff put on us from a very early age. Even aside from classmates, figures of authority, teachers or what have you, maybe some folks who crossed the line and had something to say about who we were. And sometimes we may not know where the wound originated, but understanding that there's a wound there, period, and trying to massage that and give that grace and give that love on it, pouring some love on it. Like, wow, no, you are worthy of being praised. You are worthy of being honored. You are worthy of taking up space. And you don't have to be shy about living in your gift. You don't have to be shy about advocating for yourself in the various ways. If somebody trying to touch you and you don't want to be touched, advocating for yourself in various ways, right? So it's very important for us to stand confidently. I'm not saying be arrogant, but maybe sometimes it's like an overcorrection thing. Sometimes if you've been without, you might go to the other side and then hopefully you find yourself somewhere in the medium. But maybe you do need to be arrogant for a little while, stick your chest out. Stick your chest out and walk around. Negative self-talk is the thing. But like and I've talked about this in other videos, but we've heard that voice for so long we think that it is us, and it's not us, it's just our brain trying to keep us safe. Your brain remembers everything, apparently. I guess it's like the black box from the airplane, right? It's recording everything. It's been holding on to everything. And so it's like, well, this happened and I don't want that to happen again. So why don't you just like go over here and like not say nothing? Or you need to step back. Because, well, what if this happens and what if that happens? That's what your brain does. It's just like safe, safe, safe. Your brain is not helping you to dream. Your brain is not helping you to see a way forward. Your brain is keeping you right here. It may help you do it's good at practical stuff for the most part. It's really good at practical stuff. Like, oh, well, this leads to that and that leads to this and this leads to that. So there's some releasing that has to be done in terms of identifying yourself with the voice inside of your head. Be like, girl, that's cute, that's nice, but I'm gonna be over here, dreaming and visioning my way forward. I'm gonna come back to you when it's time to make the plan. Cause you clearly need something to do. Cause all this whoop 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 you got going on right now, that's not giving what it's supposed to have gave. Like you just trying to deter me from making my plan to leave. You're just trying to deter me from leaving this country to go to a next country. Because I know I will be fine, because I trust myself, because I know myself. I am in a constant state of knowing myself. That's something though. I love that. Just because you feel intimidated doesn't mean that I'm intimidating. Facts. Thanks. I need the encouragement. You welcome, girl. We all need it. Literally, we all need it. It's just like, and that's what this conversation is about. In the words I was using to share about this video, I was saying that we feel cracked. What we are doing is filling in those cracks with ourself. No matter the coping that you use on the outside, I said we always have to come back to ourselves. We're the ones that have to do the work. We're the ones that are with ourselves all day, every night, right? And so you're filling in those cracks to say, I believe in you. I know that you can make a way forward. Look at all these other times you've made a way forward. I believe in what it is that you want. I have seen how you are in this kind of situation, and I know that you deserve to experience more of that. You don't have to be in this 9 to 5 job all the time. Girl, you could sell a house. You could sell a car. If family miss you that much, they can come visit, and you could also go back and visit them during the holidays or whatever that looks like. Anything that is a challenge, or you perceive to be a challenge for you, there's always an answer. And it's just like a lot of times we make things bigger than what they are. Like, how much do you really see your family as it is anyway? And I don't know. Sometimes I guess it's just good to be around people who got the same genes as you, but I don't know. Is family giving what it's supposed to have gave? Because if they ain't, then why are you prioritizing it? Sorry. That's my own thing. Um, yeah. Family for me, speaking of which, has also been a thing. I'm just like, other people are really close to their families, and like that seems like the way it should be. And for a while I tried to play into that. When I lived in Atlanta, I would go back home to Illinois. I would try to have what I called family fun day. And I would take my little CNN money and like try to get everybody to go to the movies and like go make s'mores, the stuff you saw the Cosby's doing or whatever, or whatever, whoever was doing whatever they was doing on TV back then. But that didn't make us a family. We didn't have the practice of doing that. And me, it's like coming from the inside out. I'm the outside in. Me coming through, rallying everybody, trying to get everybody together. And then it happened again with my nieces and nephews, who I felt closer to because I was closer to them in age. So I'm the 10th child in my family. The last, they call me the baby, but I never felt like the baby. I just felt like the youngest because they a bunch of yahoos. But anyway, sorry, Carmen, if you're watching this. She the only one I talk to. So I felt closer in age and in, I guess, spirit to my nieces and nephews because I was always watching them. I was the babysitter. And so after I moved, I would, try to bring them down to Atlanta with me. And when I left the country, I would try to like message them. I had this thing where I would like message them every single Sunday, like, what's good, what's going on. But again, like they inherited the family dynamics and they wasn't with it. They would, some of them, it's like so many, I don't even know. I had to make a spreadsheet of how many, 9 brothers and sisters. It's a lot of kids. And some of them I haven't even met yet because they just kept going after I left. And so I would do this thing every Sunday where I would message them and I'd be like, what's good? What's going on? Some would reply, some wouldn't, some never have. And it was like, if I'm not moving this forward, again, from the outside in, if I'm not moving this forward, it's not going to happen. And I just let it go. And that's like, I don't know, that's happened in these last 5 years that I had to let that go and make my peace with what it was. It's not going to be what you want it to be. They ain't got that. They don't even like me, honestly. Oh, Wanda, you're judgmental. I don't know what else they say because I don't talk to them. I've heard the judgmental thing from one of my nieces though. Oh, she thinks you're judging her. Well, maybe I am. Maybe she needs to be judged. I don't know. But anyway, and if I continue to let that be a hole, be a crack inside me, then any old thing could fall up in there. Alcohol, I love a good drink. Alcohol could fall up in there. Romantic relationships could fall up in there, trying to fill the crack. Endless watching TV could fall up in there. Work, this entrepreneurship thing that I'm doing could fall up in there. Anything could fall in there to try and fill that familial, perceived familial crack. But instead, I've just said, like, they're not adding anything to me. They never have. They've never been around. They wasn't around when I decided to go to college, when I decided to move to Atlanta. They never came to visit. I'm sending them money. They ain't even send me no money. Again, like, what is your purpose in my life? You don't even do nothing for me. And I think it's very much that. It's not that life is transactional, but there definitely has to be a give and a take. And if all you're doing is taking and then not even contributing in any kind of way to any effort, then it's just like, I'm good. And actually, I'm good. Like, I don't need that form of blood bond in my life because I'm full with myself. I'm making myself whole. I am saying that it is okay that I don't have them and doing what I need to do and enjoying my life. And knowing that I'm able to make connections with others, that's where chosen family comes in, to where that's never it's never a negative for me because I have what I need. I may not and this is what we do sometimes. We get caught up on where it's coming from. And because we get caught up on where it's coming from, you may not recognize that it's there, that you don't need nothing else, that you have what it is you really need. So very much that. But I've had years of practice because, I've been in a family, since I was born. So, so you may not jump to that. Like if that's something you're dealing with, you may not jump to that right away. Like it's a process. Like I said, siblings and then other stuff. And, yeah, my parents aren't alive. I don't know if y'all know that, but yes. So I think the siblings were even easier. It's usually the mama. Most people don't want to let go of their mama. And then maybe reactive trauma from the father and the lack thereof or what he represented when he was there. Some people have good dads, which is great. So, but usually good or bad or indifferent, usually not indifferent. People just usually love their mama. And I had to let go of that, not because she passed, but because she was never there for me in that way. She couldn't be. But I recognized that early on. I was never angry with her for how she showed up in my life. I don't know where I got that. I have no idea where I got that. I just knew that she was giving me what she was able to give me. And the other stuff that I would have liked to have had, I've still gotten. And it's okay. I was never angry with her to the point I had to forgive her for anything. So I think it's valuable to take a look at these things that could be the trigger, that could be a potential crack, and either say that's never been a crack. I don't have to see it like that, or that was a crack and I've been able to fill it with myself to say I'm enough and I love me, and just me being alive means that I'm worthy and I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I don't have to be productive. I don't have to be Black excellence. I can just exist. And like that in itself is sunshine. That in itself is the beauty of life. And then anything else I choose to do, because like I like doing other stuff. It's just because I want to do it. So those are the ways that can look. Those are some of the things I've dealt with personally that could have been, and maybe at some point, for sure at some point, have been cracks in my own existence, in my own ability to feel fulfilled and to feel whole. And so that's what that looks like, having those conversations with you, those real conversations with yourself. I find sometimes that saying it out loud, some people like to journal, but like saying it out loud is helpful, because what the mind does is it'll just keep going around circularly, and it won't have a solution. Like the mind will just be like, man, you had 9 of them and they all rejected you. Man, like whatever that looks like. Yeah. So, what y'all talking about? It's crazy what sticks with us from youth. Absolutely. I remember this little boy telling me I was ugly. That stuff, and the brain usually remembers the most terrible stuff. Again, you don't remember that really peaceful moment 2 weeks ago that you had when everything was okay and you wasn't bothered by nothing. Your brain doesn't remember that stuff. It just remembers the ugly stuff. Those combos weren't going on in my house. Most of us, right? I'm my own family. Only I am looking out for my overall well-being. I'm not speaking ill of my fam, but I want more out of life, and I'm the only one trying. The same old routine feel like a slow death. Oh, Groundhog's Day, right? Oh. And that's the thing, is like, and I find it for people in general, like nobody's really talking about what's happening. And I guess that's why, I don't know. Every single video I do is going to be this, right? I love the nuance. I love the depth, because everybody else just seems so shallow. How's the weather? Or, oh, wow, this happened in politics, or this is what's going on, COVID, or these countries are open for Americans, or what's going on. Like, things that are easy to grasp for the low hanging fruit. And I'm just like, I am actually alive. Like, what is with having all these responsibilities, having to be a nutritionist and a financial wizard and a personal instructor, and like having to motivate yourself? And, I'm just like, there's all this stuff, there's all this real stuff that's happening. How are you dealing with this and that with your family? And like, people are largely just like, don't talk about that, are very tight-lipped about it, particularly Black culture. Like, we not finna talk about what's going on in our households a lot of time. People don't talk about being at odds with their family, just because you're not supposed to tell your business out in the streets like that. People can use it against you, particularly at work. People can use it against you. And so I understand the trust issues or whatever, but I've always wanted to have these deeper conversations. That's why the podcast is what it is, because I just get bored. Like, what are y'all talking about? Y'all ain't even saying nothing, using all those words, and y'all ain't saying nothing. My mom will roll over in her grave, though. She was all about family. Better him than me. No, but you get to be different. So yes, that is what modeling it looks like. Are you able to say no to people and advocate for yourself because you need rest? Are you able to put up healthy boundaries because you need time and space to yourself? You don't have to leave in order to do this. You can do this while you're here. I think some people had some practice if they were actually social distancing, like if they were staying home or what have you, maybe had some practice. It depends on your living situation, but being with themselves in a way that we've never been able to be with ourselves, just because capitalism keep you on your toes. Rent is high, okay? Rent is the rent was due, okay? So it is great to cultivate that practice now. It is great to develop a language to start to speak with yourself, to have that awareness. And if something that isn't you, and maybe it's a past situation that you've dealt with, or just a scary situation that you could deal with, you being able to intercept that and have a conversation around that so that you can do the thing that you want to do, or you can let go of what already happened and say, I know that happened in the past, and I know you're trying to keep me safe, but I'm not that person anymore. So I'm able to behave differently. I'm going to take a different action. So if somebody comes up to me and they're asking me if I could take on another project, I'm going to show them what it is I currently have and ask them what they want to take off my plate so that I can't do that project. That type of thing. How are you advocating for yourself, for your time, for your energy? If don't nobody else do dishes in the house and you're allowing this to happen, how can you have a conversation that brings that type of activity into your household? How can you take back some of your time and energy? Are you the only one cooking? If it comes to friendships or something like that, and maybe there's something you need to resolve there, having the advocating for yourself and having the courage to have those deeper conversations. I felt like when this happened, you weren't there for me, but also understanding who that person is. I think that you save a lot of heartache when you understand who a person is. So if that's them acting out of alignment with who they are, they're never going to show up for you in that kind of way. So careful with those types of things. But if it's something that they've previously been able to do, like you've seen them behave in that kind of way, and you could say, like I've seen you do this before, and like it would have been really helpful if you had done this or that. Like what was happening during that time, and like advocating for yourself, not being afraid to lose the friendship by having a real conversation. Because if that's a real fear, then what kind of friendship do you really have? And that goes with any relationship, really. So this is where, and not just doing it while you're in your home based area, even while you're traveling, especially while you're traveling, especially while you're traveling, and maybe you're in a different culture, maybe you're in a different community, like a local community of folks who may include expats, immigrants, so forth and so on. And so you want to make sure that if there's uncomfortable conversations coming up, I don't hang around white people. And there's a reason why. Because no, a lot of y'all don't have the self-awareness that's needed. So when the conversation goes to something, are you excusing yourself from the table and taking a break? Because Google is free. I'm not doing that type of labor for you. Or however that looks, that's just my thing. But however it looks for you, how are you advocating for yourself? How are you having these real conversations with yourself in a neutral, safe space? This is the best time to have them, right? Because otherwise you're going to be up mad thinking about all the stuff you could have said. Right? Ooh, some things you can't prepare for. I know we love to be prepared. We love to over plan in preparation for all the possible things that could happen under the sun to protect ourselves from any type of discomfort or tragedy. But there are some things you cannot plan for. So how are you being at ease with that as well? Oh wow, that was a situation that I didn't expect to happen. And so how can I make this right within myself? Well, you didn't know, and this happened, and then that happened. And I'm just showing you compassion because I know that you haven't really dealt with something like this before. And like, it's okay. It's okay. You're still okay. You still have food to eat. You still have shelter. It was unsettling for sure, but next time, and then you just add that to your arsenal. Add that to your arsenal of ways for you to take care of yourself. That's all ultimately what this is all about. And traveling will bring you into a lot of different situations. It will bring you into a lot of different places and spaces where you're just like a newborn, essentially, walking around in adult in an adult body. And entrepreneurship as well. I talk about that a lot, but I always try to address this first. This is always the precursor to anything you do in entrepreneurship, because if you have not made space for yourself, if you do not see yourself, you're going to recreate the existing stuff, the existing structures, the existing marketing tools, the existing sales pages, like whatever it is that has already existed. You're just going to recreate that versus creating from a place that serves you the best. So, as an entrepreneurship, seeing yourself and giving yourself permission to take up space in a way that feels good to you, make money in a way that feels good to you, make offers that feel good for you to make and to offer, cultivate community in a way that feels good to you. So you don't have to do the other stuff that's soul sucking and often time consuming. And you may not even get the same results. You can do the same stuff other people are doing and have a completely different outcome just because of who you are and how people are drawn to you or not drawn to you, which that's their business really. But if you know who you are and you are grounded, then entrepreneurship is it will be a way for you to express yourself. It will be a way for you to create an offering from a place of love because you love yourself and you are making something that you want to offer and selling it in a way that you're comfortable selling it. Now, I will push you a little bit because sometimes, that comfort thing, it's holding you back from really, really showing up. But for the most part, if you are challenging in a healthy way, challenging yourself to present the stuff you really want to present, then you're going to make the impact that you really want to make. Plans change. You plan for something to happen and it's going to happen how it's going to happen. Once you put the art out into the world, people are going to see it how they want to see it. You mean it to be that, but they take it as this and whatever. So there's a lot of flow that happens there. But ultimately, as long as people are digging what you're offering. Hey, Waffle Cat Studio. I forgot your name, love. I'm so sorry. Happy Saturday. So yeah, seeing yourself is going to be the avenue to you being able to be more embodied. You have to leave yourself less. I think we've spent a lot of time outside of ourselves, not being embodied. You do it when you go to work and you just kind of take your brain out of your head and you do what the people told you to do. A lot of times they're not receptive to like the new ideas, even if you are like a creative kind of person. In our relationships, sometimes we leave and we do the easy thing and we're not asking somebody how are they really, or somebody is not asking us how we are really. Maybe we don't have that depth of relationships in our life. When it comes to the work that we do, again, doing the stuff that we think we're supposed to be doing versus actually doing the thing that we want to do and giving ourselves permission to see how it goes. Because we're used to being productive, we're used to needing an outcome. We need an outcome, which is the check to pay for the apartment and all the stuff in the apartment, or the house and to pay for all the stuff in the house. But allowing it to unfold, because it does come in stages. Don't nobody have a out of the box business unless you buy a franchise, right? You got the recipes, you got the menu, you got the workflow. You turn the grill on. I don't know, I've never worked I never worked fast food. I guess it could be like a Best Buy, the inventory for the most part, and then you get to buy stuff that you think will sell better in your particular location, like a H&M or like however that goes. So unless you have a franchise, which is an out of the box business, then you're going to have to figure out every single piece of it, every single piece. And the more that it comes from you initially, not forever, because that's not sustainable, I don't think, anyway. The more it comes from you, then the more you will get people who are just into your whole thing. So, but it starts with seeing yourself first. Seeing yourself, sitting with who you are, dealing with some of the things that impact how you show up or how you don't show up. Because you think you're ugly, because you think you're intimidating, because you think that what you're doing is not that special, because what you think that anybody could do this. So if you stop that, if you're like, Ooh, hold on. Record scratch. Actually, girl, you got the tea. You got the biscuits. You got the tea and the biscuits. For real, a lot of work relationships and exchanges are dependent on you being a certain way. You know what? I've been thinking a lot about the work relationship and how a lot of times, like it is the F boy thing, they not hearing nothing about no raises. They're not hearing nothing about what it is that you have to say. It's very much you fitting inside the construct of what they want. It's like being a trophy wife almost, playing a role. And there's just no leeway. There's no conversation there. Often, not the places I've worked anyway. I wonder about some of these startups, but even these startups, like the smaller businesses that are making a profit, but maybe they're not like big yet. And maybe they've been funded as well, or maybe they're bootstrapped. But I think sometimes those, they just take all your intellectual property and then you just giving them everything. You helping to build them from the ground up, and that's hours upon hours upon hours of you just going at it and not getting a whole lot out of it. And that's the problem with a job, I think, in general, is that you're not able to see yourself in that job. Some people have a job and they can rock it, and they don't mind giving up the intellectual parts of themselves. And maybe they're not even tied to that job, and they'll go and what is the I forget what you call it, how long somebody stays at a job. I think it's way more acceptable now to stay somewhere maybe a year to 3 years and keep it moving. And it's not necessarily like bad when you're interviewing for your next gig. Oh, I see you have a pattern of leaving. I don't know. But anyway, oh, Rosanna. Thank you, Rosanna. So, yeah, seeing yourself helps you to live life in every facet that you want to live life, because it all comes from you. Whether you're in your home country or whether you've made the move abroad, it's like I told you, if you move abroad, if you haven't done this work, you're just taking the same person somewhere else. So you may recreate some of the same things that happen when it comes to your close relationships, when it comes to not being able to sleep at night. You thought, "Oh, I'm not there no more. I'm gonna sleep good." No, you're not, because you're anxious about all the unresolved stuff that's just floating around in your mind versus sitting with it and having a conversation with those things and giving yourself some compassion so that you could move forward, so that you can let it go, so that you can let it become a scar and it doesn't have to be an open wound so tender, right? Scars are tough. Scars are evidence that we have healed. So giving yourself that space. I don't like living too much in the healing. I I used to talk quite a bit about that. Healing. Travel is healing. In some sense, it is an ongoing process because these conversations are ongoing. But I never want you to think at any point that you're not already whole. And there are a lot of people who capitalize on you thinking that you're not whole. That's how they make their money, is by feeding into your idea that you're not whole already. So that's why I try to be conscious about the language that I use. My little tagline is helping, what is it? I just, tenure, something like that. Yeah, Rosanna. Rukia, what's up, girl? The things we need to address will keep coming popping up. They absolutely will. Until you address it, it will. I was saying my tagline, I said creating conversations, community, and something to embrace wholeness and to help you travel better, longer, and make money online. I was doing a marketing class Sunday, and I can give you all the tips. I can give you all the tips, right? I can tell you about setting up your funnels. I could talk to you about individual platforms and what each individual platform requires in order for you to be seen, because you're just talking to an algorithm, essentially a computer that's deciding whether to show your stuff or not to show your stuff. And so, even with that, if you haven't done the work, if there's any part of you that is hesitant, that is going to come across. Think about the people that you see online. Who shows up? I don't want to say authentically. Who do you think shows up fully? Who do you think shows up consistently? Who gives themselves permission to do so? And who do you see hesitating in the wings sometimes? And usually that's where the inconsistency stems from, is because they're not grounded. They haven't prioritized seeing themselves in order to, or reckoned with that. Maybe not prioritize, because it is a bit of a process. And it's a constant showing up, right? It's constant. You are combating years of you doing the opposite thing. So to make a new choice, that takes practice. And so that is a constant conversation. But like, who do you see having this constant conversation out loud? That's where the inconsistency comes from. So even if you have the marketing tips and tools, you're not going to use them because you haven't said, what I have to say is important. What I have to share is valuable. And I'm putting a price on this. I'm putting a flow on this. I'm putting intention to this so that I can show up in these places, so I can give people what I know they need. I know they need this, and I know they need it from me. But if you haven't given yourself the permission to show up, if you haven't given yourself the permission to say, man, last time I tried something and it was messy and nobody commented on it, nobody shared it, and I don't know if I want to put myself out there like that again. That's going to show up. That shows up by you not doing nothing, and it shows up by you being inconsistent. So you absolutely have to advocate for yourself in those ways and have those conversations. I know before I showed up in that way, if I remember correctly, there was this going on, there was that going on, there was that going on. There was something from my childhood that was kind of wedged in there, but I got that unwedged and I'm having that conversation. So I believe that I'm going to be able to do this. And if I misstep, I'm going to give myself the grace to keep trying, because I understand that this thing takes time. I understand that development takes time. I understand that this is a practice. I'm practicing out loud, and I am okay with some people not liking me. I am okay with some people not supporting me. I am okay with being the pillar, with being the foundation, with being whatever strength that I need in order to see this thing through. I am giving myself that grace. So thank you very much, brain, for trying to protect me from humiliation or shame or like whatever it is that you think your brain is trying to protect you from. But I got this. I owe this to myself. I owe it to all these generations of people who couldn't leave their families, who couldn't travel, who couldn't start their own businesses, who couldn't whatever. Not that you owe it to these generations, because I mean, it's your life. It's your life. I don't know if living for somebody else works long term. People do it with kids too. I'm living for my kids. All right, girl. But taking up that space for yourself, and I think it's a nice homage to those that came before us, and especially those who did show up and were erased. Now you get to put your name on something and somebody knows it's you. How much of history have we found out came from people that weren't who the face of it is, right? Come on. Christina said, what about the notion that travel can be a source of therapy? It can. So I talked about this in the very beginning, and that is, you are able to be yourself more because you don't see yourself the same, and maybe people see you differently. Let me say it how I said it before. Because you are in a new environment, people may see you differently, and you may begin to see yourself differently. So while it is helpful It is not the answer if you permanently relocate, because then you just take yourself somewhere new, right? Versus doing the work that you need to do along the way, the whole time, so that no matter where you are comfortable inside your skin. You are comfortable with your pandemic bulge. A lot of our bodies have changed. That's also something that is a part of wellness as well, is moving your body and finding a way to commit to that and understanding the importance of that, and understanding how there's a lot of theories that happen. Not only is the trauma in our genes, but it's also stored in our very cells, like in our hip bones, and like in the physical body is basically what I'm saying. Not just in the genetics, which are like passed down, but like your particular traumas in your body. And so by moving your body and finding a way to honor sacred movement, whatever that looks like, dance, yoga, it doesn't necessarily have to be formal. You don't have to be, I mean, weightlifting is great because it's good for your bones, especially the older you get. Like strong bones is really, really important, but it can look any kind of way. If you're making a practice of moving your body, I think you're helping to exercise some of those demons, as it were, right? So back to your question, travel is therapy. Yes and no. And the other thing I talked about before too was that, sometimes you travel and there's this pressure, or maybe just a curiosity. I want to see, I want to do, I want to go. There's not so much being. There's not sitting with, okay, I'm in a new place and now I have some time to decompress. I have some time to think about some stuff that's happened. I've had some time to think about the ways that I've showed up, how I haven't defended myself, how I haven't advocated for myself, how I've been shrinking, how I'm insecure about this or that. There's I don't hear as much about that. Maybe it happens, but maybe y'all just don't talk about it because you don't want to put your business out in the streets, because that's black, right? That's the black way of living. But you see the photos, you see the drinks and the food, and you see whatever is to be seen, the reels now. Now it's reels of the flying dresses. You see the glossy stuff, but you don't see the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. So it can be. Most anything can be anything. It just depends on how you do it, right? Even daily life is an act of therapy when we are self-reflective in the process. And it doesn't have to be this whole, oh, I'm just wrapped up in I'm wrapped up in decades of what happened. It doesn't even look like that. It's just like feeding yourself living food that actually feeds your body versus you eating packaged stuff all the time, right? You putting down the chips and soda and opting for something a bit more fresh. It looks like you being conscious of that hurt my feelings, and I may not say something about it right now, but I'm going to say something later. Or it may be you being conscious of, oh, I'm going to go take a walk. I said I'm going to start walking and I'm going to honor my decision and get this practice going. And you make that same choice every day. Or it could be, I'm going to put out a new offering. I want a stream of income, and this is something I'm really interested in. I'm going to put a price on it. I'm going to package it, and I'm going to put it out there in the world. Excuse me. And so that's what it looks like in practice. It's not so deep and so heavy and so, dramatic. It's the decisions that you make. I'm not going to stay up till 5 a.m. I stayed up till 5 a.m. last night or the night before. Who knows? Because these days are. Sometimes I let myself do that. And sometimes, I have to hustle myself to get to bed because I don't know, circadian rhythms. I don't know. I just think I'm supposed to go to bed earlier. It's just instead of staying up like a vampire. But that's what it looks like. It is the everyday practices, the everyday decision. It is the monitoring yourself. It is the not letting yourself be sad about things that you can think a bit more deeply about, so you don't have to be sad about them. Some things you could be sad about. I think sadness, all emotions serve a purpose, but ultimately it's like, what experience do you want to have? Do you want to live as a sad person, or do you want to be sad most of the time, or would you rather be neutral or even joyful more of the time? It's a personal choice. It's like you're an artist. I use green, you use red. You do what you want, I do what I want. That makes sense, working on yourself along the travel journey and not just seeking to run away. And yes, being comfortable with this pandemic. Bold is real. And it's just this whole, the body mass index, the thing that says you're too fat, which that's usually what it says for Black people particularly. Even again, pulling yourself out of that funhouse mirror, you are being reflected. And we've known medically what they've done to us and continue to do to us. And for them to say that this is the standard, to the point where we have to have whole campaigns about loving our bodies. You talk to a woman, any woman, anywhere in the world, she's going to point out to you what she doesn't like about herself easily. She may not say it out loud, but she knows it, right? It's that conditioning is holding this standard that somebody said a long time ago, and cultures keep reinforcing it. Societies keep reinforcing it. It's taking a step back from that and saying, you know what? I went to the doctor. I don't have high blood pressure. Whatever other health afflictions could impact you. Maybe you need to be more conscious of your weight because of how it's affecting your joints and stuff like that. That's just practical. But just to not, if you're healthy on the books, so to speak, then not liking your body just to not like it just because it doesn't look like somebody else's body. Like, where they do that at? Why? For what? What is the point of seeing yourself the same way as you travel if you yeah, what is the point of traveling if you continue to see yourself the same way? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, letting that change happen, and you don't even have to travel. Like, you can, for all intents and purposes, do this beforehand. That's the lick, really. Right now, where you are, where can you make more space? And then letting travel be that cherry on top. Self-love, self-preservation, self-acceptance, our first need to fulfill. All of that, all of Rukia, come on, knowledge. Not you knowing the words. I think too, though, as you start to see and accept yourself, and it is, you've probably had more practice not than you do in the acceptance, in the flow of it. Giving yourself grace and challenging yourself to step out a little bit more. Maybe I show my face. Maybe I share my real name. Maybe I let this relationship go. Maybe I fast. Maybe I don't know. It looks all kinds of different ways. It just depends on where you are right now. What else is on y'all's minds? What else y'all thinking about recently? If you feel comfortable sharing. You're also able to private message me if you don't want everybody knowing your business. So if you've been coming to these lives, a few of them I edited it, and so it doesn't show the live comments, which I might edit this. I'm not sure. But all I do is like take off the beginning and the end because it's usually just weird. I like to get straight to it, and it's just like, oh, everybody coming in. How's everybody doing? I don't really do that too much. But feel free to share. The way that you can let me know if you want it private is you could message me on Facebook, I guess, if you got that, or Instagram. Instagram is BWT Pod. Facebook is just my name, Wanda Duncan. You could just message me and I'll check my requests. But yeah, that's mostly what I had to share with y'all today. The wellness is the foundation. The wellness, the seeing yourself, the accepting yourself, the loving on yourself, the caring for yourself, the dealing with some of the things that you perceive to be problems. And we've talked about the how to talk yourself through that. Oh, you think this about yourself. Well, is this true? And is there another way to see this so that this doesn't have to be debilitating for you? And then that lets you spread like wildfire. I guess that's a really bad, because you don't want wildfire to spread. But why do we say these things? That helps you to make the impact that you want to make, right? Because it will impact your relationships, familial or friends. It impacts your work, whether it's your job or if you're an entrepreneur. And it impacts just your everyday lived experience, which, like, who doesn't want life to be sweeter? Wouldn't you like to spend more time just enjoying who and what you are, rather than thinking there's something wrong, rather than believing that what other people say about you is true? Come on now. What's the choice? That's not a choice. Also, I will add in there real quick, if you haven't yet, could you please take one moment to go ahead and hit that chukka subscribe button to this channel. If you found any of this helpful or true, or you just want to support me, you can share this video with the homies. And yeah, get into the description box. I share a whole bunch of stuff there. I send out a newsletter every single week, and it's a bit of this, but much shorter. Much shorter. I try to explore one idea every week. I just make an offering, and it might hit and it might not, but I send it out every week. And we have a free group, Black Women Digital Nomad Entrepreneurs. It's on Facebook. It's cute. We talk nice to each other up in there. And we talk about what it is to be Black, what it is to be a woman, what it is to create an online business, what it is to travel, and how all of those things make a nice pie, make a nice mess sometimes. You can follow me on social too. I think I'm more active in the group, and then like folks reply to my newsletter sometimes. I mentioned the Black Women Travel podcast. Listen to that if you are looking for more of these kinds of conversations, but it's not just me, it's other ladies. It's only other ladies. I rarely talk there except for to ask a question. But yeah, and that comes out every single week. There's a link in the description for that. Christina said, Black in the Balkans. How are you doing in Albania? I'm very curious about it. Due to the pandemic, countries to travel is limited. Going to white country, how has that played a part in your wellness? Okay, so on the wellness tip, like, it's been great. Asia was getting to me. There is a culture there. That's not me speaking slowly. The culture there is not what I'm into. It seems very repressive to me with my personality, to my spirit, with who I am. And so I didn't like it anymore. I like Thailand quite a bit, but I also didn't have a lot of local friends or any local friends in Thailand. So maybe that's why I liked it, because I wasn't inside the culture. I usually like to have local friends. And, visiting a place is different from living there. So, but yeah, so I was excited. I was excited for a change in cuisine, because the noodles and the rice, I mean, it's good, right? It's good, but it's just like very cooked. And so I was ready to get into my fresh salad. I'm a vegetarian. My fresh salads, and like, there's something about the produce in Albania that is just top notch. I got a honeydew in the fridge I'm about to tear into shortly, and it is amazing. Like, watermelon, honeydew, the strawberries, the cherries. I don't think I ever tasted these fruits before in my entire life. Even the tomatoes. It's just like, it's so flavorful. I don't know why. It's just so good. Culture wise, I'm kind of running into the same thing, but not. So there are all these cultural norms that just grate against my skin, which it's whatever. I haven't been out in the streets too much because they don't believe in science and I do. So I haven't been trying to be around too many people. The numbers have been raising steadily at a sharp increase. So I have not been out in those streets like that recently. But just the stuff I observed, men separated from women, where are all the women? And it just generally being difficult. They're shy. They don't speak first. Like, you got to speak first. Like, I did a whole video on it. It was like the first live that I did because everybody's like, Albania? What is that about? So you can watch that live if you want like real details. Everybody says they're super nice, and I'm not really sure what that means still, largely, because to me, they just be minding their business. I guess that's nice. Um, um, but I'm living my best yoga life, my best food life. I have a thriving tea life here. Um, and the weather is fall now. It was hot and I was miserable because, again, I just came from the sun, I thought, but I met another part of the sun. Ew, it's gross. Um, so the weather now is like really, really nice. It's top notch. And yeah, I guess that's mostly it. Yeah. Not the crying cat. But overall, how it is to be a black person here. So I started, you know how I do, or maybe you don't. I'm always starting something. Got to be starting something. Jamal. I started a Black in Albania group. And because I met some black people. They're not in my city, they're in the city that's an hour away, which is Tirana, the capital. There's quite a few black folks. There's some military black folks that I never got to, women's. And we had a virtual meetup, and that was nice. Some are just thinking about coming here, and some are actually here. But we're all in different places, and so you gotta like travel to actually link up, except if you live in the capital, which some of them do. Um, how is it to be black here? There are stares, mostly from the men. That's because mostly the men are out in the streets. They have a cafe culture. So, you got 3,000 men. It literally be like that. 3,000 men sitting at these cafes, staring a lot. But does anybody bother? No. Have I gotten a couple whistles? Of course. Um, okay, so I do have some inside intel, and I did talk about this in the Albania video, but apparently they're black-ish. So they have hip hop, their own version of hip hop music. They use hip hop beats or they use trap beats or whatever. And then it's all Albanian. Da-da-da-da. Albanian sounds like Portuguese to me a little bit. Um, they get fades. That's the common hairstyle. The men get fades. I've heard they're nice downstairs from a black girl I met in Tirana who has been here for like over a year. Take that for what you will, but they all live with their mamas because this is not a rich country. This is a country that has been run through. If you're looking for rich men, you got to go to the colonizers, the Italy, the Spain, of course, the UK, any number, France, any number of them other ones. But a lot of these other countries are the ones that were run through. Oh, like historically speaking. Um, yeah. But then there's this whole like taboo about men and women being able to be seen together. And like, if they see you together, they think you dating. And women apparently don't like for men to approach them because if you approach them, then maybe other people won't approach. I don't really know, but this is stuff I've read and observed. Just a huge separation. And that just grinds my gears. How many people are in the Black in Albania? What is it, like 13 now? I don't know, it's like 13 up in there. Maybe half are actually here, and the other half are Albania curious. But you build it and they come. So overall, being black in Albania is like no big deal. I don't think that there are the stereotypes that some black people face in some places, but I just think it's a foreigner. There's a line, mostly because people just there's a honor system. They believe in there's a virginity culture, and so like I don't know, they just there it's insular. It's one of those things like that's the thing that you come across when you're traveling. Some cultures are easy to penetrate, like they're welcoming, and some are just like very standoffish. I'm not going to say that they're standoffish. I will say that it takes time to massage your way in, and because of science, I haven't tried to massage my way nowhere. I have a corner shop. I guess it's like my bodega, if you want to get New York about it. And the ladies there are super curious and they be trying to ask me all kind of questions. And one of them that works there lives in my building, and her mama invited me over for coffee. So like I'm sitting there, and of course I'm really bad and I'm not learning Albanian, not really. One of her granddaughter, yeah, her granddaughter knows English because they teach it in school, and so she was able to translate, and then she left, and then it was like, okay, sometimes people just talk at you or whatever. But so yeah, it's fine. I don't think that money is what they talk. If you got money, first of all, they think you're a foreigner, so they think you got money, which I don't know that I've encountered that so much as here. Like all the other places that I've been, I don't think I've encountered that as much. That perception that you're a foreigner, you got money. So there is sometimes a foreigner tax. So like you may either pay the correct price or like a little bit more just because they trying to get that guap. And it's the same with like the housing market. They trying to get that guap. That's not what any of them are paying, but they want you to pay almost like 10 times the price, 4 or 5 times the price. So there's that. You're welcome, Christina. So that's Albania. But overall, like I'm chilling. I was promised a vaccine in Malaysia and then they kicked me out. Here, they're not making it possible for foreigners to get a vaccine. So I'm over here, low porosity hair, brown mascara, unvaccinated. um, so some people I've heard have gotten through, in these Facebook groups, they get the so all they needed was like an Albanian number in your passport. They didn't ask for a resident card. So I've heard some people were able to slip through or go to a different location and slip through. But the city is like I said, I think it's really like half an hour. Maybe I'm making it longer. I don't know. But it's not here. So I'd have to travel to go get it. And I got lives to do, honey. I don't have time to be on the bus. Okay. All right. My loves, my darlings, my sweetie darlings. Yes, please subscribe to the channel. Please let me know what else you want to talk about. I'm super reachable. Just check out the description in this video or any video or the description for the channel, and you can find out how to contact me if there's something in particular you want to talk about, or if there's something deeper that you want to go into that I maybe glossed over. I don't know how, because I've been talking for 48 hours. But yes, I'm super interested in what you're going through and what you think is not being talked about enough or loudly enough or however that looks. Wow, that sun is really in my eyeball. So yes, thank you so much for hanging out with me, for chilling with me today. And I hope you have a gorgeous rest of your day. Thank you, Rukia. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Rosanna. I think that's everybody. Thank you, V. Y'all take very good care. Holler.